The Pure Madness is a new big oil monster coming from Colombia on February 22nd, and this one is definitely a little crazy. I'm bowling on the Kegel Chromium lane condition that we always use for testing. It's a challenge pattern at just under a 7-to-1 ratio, 42 feet long, 25.5 mils. That puts it on the heavy side of medium for both volume and length. It's not as easy as a house shot, but not as punishing as a sport pattern. I also have my layout information up on the screen in both languages. It's a small change from my previous asymmetric layout that I covered in the Black Widow 3.0 review, just a little earlier and more stable than the old one. I'm throwing everything out of the box now to help give you an idea if you can do the same or if a surface adjustment might be needed. This ball comes at 2000 grit and is a Chonkosaurus Rex. You really shouldn't be considering one if that's not what you're after, so I think the surface the ball comes at is perfect for the design intent and the goal with this ball, which is to flat out dig. It could be interesting if polished to use on a super clipped house shot with a flood in the middle. It would definitely hook more in the oil and blend the dry well, but I think primarily this ball is for heavier, tougher patterns. As I've begun doing, I'm going to give you the details first while we watch to get your eyes warmed up. Then we're going to run it back and tackle it zone by zone to talk about the adjustments I made when moving around, where it felt the most comfortable, where I felt like I had to help it the most, so on and so forth, just to get deeper and give you a much better idea where it's going to fit, both for me and for you. First of all, we're going to retire the straighter zone. It's just an unnecessary struggle to fling the ball down the lane that provides zero value to the review or to you, so no more second arrow going forward because it's obviously just dumb. Next, help me once again thank the brands of Brunswick who have stepped up to make sure you'll get to see every release in my hands going forward. However, they're just sending bowling balls. I'm not on staff, so this nose will stay as bright and freckly as it always has, and I'm a Scotch guy, not a Kool-Aid guy, so it's still business as usual. They hit full send on this one. This is just your big, strong, early, smooth, hook-in-a-box type of ball with a small twist that makes it interesting. The Pure Madness features dot and dynamic core. Dot is the unique manufacturing tech that results in the pin being on the bottom of the ball so that you don't have to worry about trying to work around the pin with the layout, which is very cool and I'm a big fan of. Dynamic core is a more durable outer core, or what's commonly referred to as the filler material between the cover stock and the core, that is supposed to compress less on impact and increase hitting power. The cover is HK22 with ERT solid additives, very strong, very early, and very smooth, and the craze core is where the twist comes in. The RG is 2.495, 048 differential, but a mild asymmetry at 012. These are basically Rondour numbers, the core from the original Rubicon, or tensor core numbers like from the Insight. Strong rolly cores, but with a medium or lower amount of torque to give you more firmness down lane than a symmetric ball, but not to the degree of something like a Gem or Extreme Envy. This does remind me a lot of a Gem though. It's got a little bit more blend, a little less just raw, unforgiving traction and force, or like a Gem that's a little more throwable. The colors aren't Angel's cup of tea, but she doesn't really like tea anyway. I like them, I think they fit. The ball looks like a giant fireball rolling down the lane, or if anyone remembers that old Brunswick wildfire that you'd get at Kmart or something, kiddos, this was back before cell phones and the internet, if it doesn't ring a bell, but just a fun look. This ball is between directional and continuous. It feels like more of a gradual climbing motion, but it does give you the option to make it roll more forward if you want it to do that. I'm fairly surprised at how much this ball hooks, but how well it still reacts. Usually a ball that's this strong and this early resists angle and gets slow and lazy unless it's just fed a ton of oil. I think you can see this ball would definitely prefer a heavier and or longer pattern, but it's still nice to see how a big heavy oil ball handles less volume than it should be used on. Seeing it still perform well gives it more versatility. Stronger balls can cause some issues for people because you're spending a lot of money on a ball that you're realistically not going to use a lot, so people will try to use them more than they should, or they'll see a ball that they want but that's too strong for them to use and they'll get it and try to use it anyway, and then naturally it won't perform well, or even worse, people will think the stronger balls should just always cover more boards than weaker ones, and that's just not how it works. Because I got the footage, I'm gonna show it, but second arrow is just useless. Obviously way too much ball, not enough bowler. It does help illustrate how strong and early the ball is and how well it actually handles friction though, so there's some small measure of relevance here. Moving in, the ball is still too strong for third arrow too, but it's smooth enough that I can kind of fake it. It's difficult, it's not comfortable, and I wouldn't be able to be consistent here or even stay here for long, but it's technically doable. The trick again here is that stronger balls like this aren't built to cover boards, they're built to be early and smooth. And when you need this amount of hook, you also need control. Covering boards on a heavier, longer pattern is a dumb idea. Even if you have to be deeper on the lane, you're typically keeping the ball in front of you or keeping your angles really closed. It actually worked from 4th arrow, and worked better than expected. I did have to be a little extra soft with my hand though. The 7 that I wrapped was one that I really liked, but it was a little rolly, so I tried to get it off my hand cleaner to make sure I helped it get through the fronts as easily as possible, and that tweaked the shape enough to get it to go through the pins better. Not this ball's wheelhouse either with the angle or the pattern, but again, really impressed at how well it's still handling the situation. Whether it's this super strong chewy ball that's still managing to handle friction well, or the shiny stuff that's really stable in oil, the B7 covers have continued to impress me. I knew that they'd gotten some things figured out the last couple years, but I don't think I've ever said wow or holy shnikes this much during filming before.
Holy shnikes.
Going to the chart, I don't think there are any surprises here. Even though it's a mild asim, bowling balls don't really get stronger than this. The Gem and Extreme Envy both max out the scale, but this one's as close as you can get without doing that. Very early ball too. It doesn't hook at your feet, but it doesn't waste any time either. It's not as early as the Envy Tour, for example, and it's pretty smooth. When I got softer with it, it's got a little definition, but it kind of has to be coaxed out. It wants to be smooth. Since I don't have any other Columbia balls at the moment, we'll compare it to the Black Widow 3.0. It also comes at 2000 grit, strong cover, stronger core than the Pure, same layout. I think it's just the colors, but it doesn't look quite as dull as the Pure. Either way, they are close. I think the 3.0 is clearly cleaner and more firm. The Pure is more of a tumbly climbing reaction, while the 3.0 is more of a cleaner arc. And even though the 3.0 has the stronger core, you can see the difference the cover creates. Virtually the same RG, but the 3.0 has quite a bit higher differential and a few points higher on the int diff, so more flare and more torque for the 3.0, and that makes sense with the 3.0 having more firmness on the back end, but the Pure is still getting a fair amount more traction earlier. The 3.0 is definitely a more throwable strong ball, or a ball that you'll be able to use more often in more situations, but it being clean and shaping a little more will lend it more to conditions like this. Still longer and heavier patterns, but it's going to be a little too responsive, I think, for tougher or super high volume patterns, or I think it would be a better fit as a ball down from something like the Pure on the heavier and longer patterns when you need a little more length and shape to move inside. With both balls now on the chart, no surprises here. The 3.0 is a little weaker on overall strength, a little more length, and a little faster or sharper on friction, but still just medium on length and friction response. I've said before that longer and sharper when it comes to a comparison doesn't mean actually long and sharp, and that's the case here. The 3.0 is still a strong, medium length, medium response ball, so weaker, longer, and sharper versus a ball that's closer to the more extreme ends of the scale is important context. Flipping back and forth on the way out here, I think you can see that there's not as much of a strength difference as a length and shape difference. The 3.0 is the more versatile kind of all-purpose ball, but when you need a big ball for a bunch of traction and the ultimate amount of control, the Pure Madness is a ball that I think is going to surprise some people, especially because it seems more versatile than it might look. This might be a sneaky option for super cliff lanes to really blend the wet dry. The Black Widow 3.0, of course, is available now, and the Pure Madness once again releases on February 22nd with Track's big wow factor shiny ASIM archetype hybrid, plus Brunswick's surprising ultimate defender, and a ball that does max out the chart in the friction response category in the Endeavor. I have reviews for all of those as well. Down in the description is a link to Bowler's Mart that will get any of the balls featured in this video ordered for you. I do have to note, of course, that I do receive a 5% commission on all sales through the links, and of course don't forget my code ROSEDOLL10 to get 10% off your order at checkout at CoolWick. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.